Hey everybody, it's Lucas here. Another video, another tool to review. Today we're going to take a look at Nozbe, which is a tool that I haven't heard mentioned a lot at all in the productivity community. But as you will find out in this video, it has a lot to show for it actually. There's a lot to like here, and today we're going to see how well it can function as a tool for the Getting Things Done productivity method, or GTD for short. So let's just dive right in. We have it open already, and what we're looking at here is a tool that right off the bat you can recognize takes a lot of GTD principles in its design. So what that means is we had very little manual setup here, as we may have had with other tools that we've reviewed, like obviously Google Spreadsheets, but also tools like Todoist or Evernote, etc. And that's always a plus for me. If a tool has GTD principles in mind, that makes it a lot easier to use. It makes it a lot more intuitive to use as well. So it starts with the inbox. So nothing that special yet, although I will say it's really great to use, very easy. You can just quickly add something. There are short keys as well. And after adding an item into the inbox, you can leave it there comfortably knowing you can process it later on. You can process it by clicking on the item itself, and you can, for example, move it from the inbox into one of these areas, such as specific projects. Perhaps it's a Tickler File item, someday maybe item, agendas, maybe it's a routine item or something else. You can move it in there from here. And you can see that all these other categories are also added, available in this very menu. How much time might you need to perform the task? Well, you can just select out of many options here. Is there a due date? If yes, you can select it. If no, you can just leave it empty, and you can even add a time as well. Is it something that you might want to repeat? So should it have its place in the routines section? In that case, you can also set it to repeat itself, in a myriad of different repetitions cycles. So that is really cool to see. And category is the probably most important one to note, which is basically contexts. Although it doesn't have to be contexts only. That's how I've decided to set it up here, but we'll take a look at what that means in just a moment. But you can select all those items here, move them out of the inbox into their appropriate place. The next is kind of the higher level view, which is projects. Now, this is where I did some kind of hacking to reinterpret what the software is designed to, how the software is designed to be used. So, by the name projects, it would imply that only active projects, like maybe starting a YouTube channel or finding a new bank, that kind of stuff is really a multi-step outcome that requires multiple actions to get there. So it's a project. So those definitely have their place here. But I found that it's also a great place to have these other categories of GTD live in here, such as the Tickler File, because essentially these projects, they're just lists, and that's all GTD is about, right? Having these lists and being able to use and interpret those lists in a certain way. So for example, the Tickler File project is just a list with items that are not next actions, and that might have a reminder associated with them. So let's imagine that I might go grocery shopping every 30th of the month, and depending on the volume of trash I generate, I might need to buy extra trash bags, yes or no? Well, that's the type of reminder I set for myself in the Tickler File. And then when I'm reminded on the day I do the grocery shopping, I can take a look, see how many bags I've got left and whether I need to buy more. So it's not a definitive next action to say I need to buy these at that time. It's a reminder to have me think about that item at that time and then make a decision on it. So this list works great for that. Same goes for someday maybe. I might want to turn my cellar, my basement into a man cave at some point in the future. Why not? Well, that's just an on-processed item that can live in this list, and you might want to process it later on in the future. This is a great place to access and store those items as well. Same goes for agendas, although the setup there is a bit different, because in this case, it's still a task that you can complete by design, but that's not what we want to do here per se. Because if we have people in our lives that we interact with frequently, like our friend or our colleague George here, we don't want to necessarily remove him from this list by ticking off the task item. Instead, what we can use here is the comments functionality. And in there, we can add, edit, or remove any open talking points or questions that we might want to bring up the next time we see George. However, for items that might be, one-time agendas like meetings, you could decide to just add your talking points here, go through them while the meeting takes place at a certain date even, that's where you can also use the due date for, and then complete the item and, have it removed from this view while still remaining accessible in the archive for future reference if needed. So that's how you can kind of hack these project lists into an alternative application. Same goes for routines. Like I want to pay my rent every month. I can add a pay rent task. Let's say it's due at the end of the month. So I'm recording this video in May. So let's give it a May 30th due date and then set it to repeat every single month. So now it's going to repeat itself every 30th of the month, which is a great way and simple way to set up routines as well. So use these projects lists creatively. Try to include these other levels, these other horizons of focus in there as well, is what I would advise for anybody using the system for GTD. Now you can go back to more standard usage here by including standalone tasks in their own lists. And like we already covered, certain specific projects, we can even give them a certain color here. And then add tasks associated with them as needed. However, you might be wondering, well, this is nice and all, but what about the most important part, which is the ground level? What about the next actions? Where can I find those? And how can I filter those for specific contexts so I only see what I can do at this point in time or at this in the context I'm in right now? That's actually where we move down a bit into categories, which I referred to at the very start of the video when we process an inbox item. Now, the way I decided to set this up is these represent contexts. And it's obvious why they decided to only give an open text field to categories, but not to something like time needed or due date or whatever, because those are, objective. Everybody has the same sense of time, but everybody has unique contexts. So what you can do is just navigate to the category section, select a certain context, and automatically you will see any action with that context. Now, the important thing here to note is that it's still up to you to make sure anything you see here is actually a next action. And that's where we get into what we could say is a bit of a shortcoming of this particular tool, like many others, is in that they don't really allow for sequential tasks or setting up dependencies like a tool such as Asana does allow you to do, for example. So in this case, we have the Start a YouTube Channel project, and we have these 3 items. However, as you can see, the first step, pretty obviously, should be to actually sign up for a YouTube account if our project is there to start a YouTube channel. Creating a YouTube banner image and picture, well, we can do that for sure. And that's why I did decide to group into next actions as well. We can design those in Photoshop before or after signing up on YouTube, but we cannot really complete it in the sense that we cannot upload those items into our channel unless we've actually created the channel first. So the way to get around that, if you do decide to include sequential actions into your project, is by simply removing the category. That way the items do live as next actions, or I shouldn't say next actions, as actions to complete as part of the project at some time in the future, but they don't show up in your next actions view, which is going to be the categories view. So make sure you stay on top of that. During your weekly review, you can at least then make sure to see everything is up to date and that anything you see from the context that are relevant to your life are actually all next actions to perform. Nothing missing and no false positives either. So no actions that actually depend on another action either, right? So pretty straightforward still. And as you can see, it's very fast, it's very snippy, it's pleasant to use, and completing items also is a satisfying action to do. So it's really well created, well thought of as a task manager, which is important for GTD, of course. There's a couple of other sections that we can go through, and this really depends on how you prefer to use it. So, you have a calendar view, in which case you can see certain tasks or other, in this case, the meeting appear from the calendar view. So anything that is associated with a certain time, you can view those from the calendar view. You can add templates as well. So if you have like recurring projects that have different applications each time, different content each time, you can set up those templates as well. And they have guided videos on many areas, including this one too. So that's good. You can add other people to your accounts. Now, this is something I'm usually pretty hesitant about, because if we're being realistic, we're not going to have everybody in our life also use this particular tool just so they can mark items complete that might be part of a collaborative project or something. So I would tend not to use this, but if you do find somebody willing to do so, you can add them here. What I would recommend doing instead is just create another tag for waiting for, and then add those items with those tags to the agenda item for that particular person. That could be a way to get around that problem. You can search, you can include comments in that search, right? So things like the talking points you might have, you can find those by searching within comments as well. Pretty straightforward. In terms of the settings, and there's a lot of options there to make sure it works for you. You can set up your specific time zone. You can import data. There's even an API, which is always interesting for more technically minded users who might have, who might want to set up integrations with other tools. And there's even some built-in integrations that might be valuable with like Google Calendar, Evernote, which is going to be really valuable for reference, because this is not really a reference tool. It's mostly really for the active task management portion of things. So if you use Evernote for reference, great, you can connect it. Same goes for many other tools like Google Drive. So those are out of the box integrations, which is good to see that they thought about that, and good to see that they included commonly used tools as well, and not just tools from their own ecosystem, right? So that's all nice. And as you can tell, overall, there's just a lot to like about this particular tool. It's easy to use, it's intuitive, it's a great fit with GTD if you make some changes to it to make it work for GTD specifically. It's exciting. So what can I say except try it out? It comes with a free trial. So there's no risk in just setting up an account, and you will be able to do so using the link in the description. So check out Nozbe, and thanks for watching. See you in the next video.